All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into week one NFL reaction. My top 5 lessons learned in fantasy football this week. We had a wild Sunday. I mean, wild. I lost essentially all side of things here. Each fantasy team I was in took different L's. So let's jump in. Why and what are my lessons learned? Here we go. So I'm comparing here running back and receiver this week because this is huge. The discrepancy kind of was pretty big between the top guys and running backs versus the top guys and receivers. All the top guys and the receivers balled, put up massive numbers. Chase, Diggs, Cup, Jefferson all almost put up 30 or more points this week in fantasy for PPR. And then you still had other guys that coming out who made massive surprises like a Mike Evans, maybe not a surprise. We had Michael Thomas who put up great numbers, Gabe Davis, and a multitude of other receivers that played really, really well. A.J. Brown put up a massive point total. And then you kind of go on the RB side of things and you're like, what the heck is going on here? Kamara, less than 10 points. Eckler, less than 15 points. CMC, only 15 points. Dalvin Cook, less than 15 points in PPR. And now you're starting to think, like, what is happening? So now do we value receivers even more? And I kind of beg to differ here because we only had 3 good running backs. Saquon, Swift, and Taylor, who each of those had 25 points or more. And so now, again, it's only a week one trend. I don't think this is going to keep up because, again, the premium is in the running back position. That's why they're drafted so early. But this is going to be something you have to look out for and maybe a buy low potential for a lot of these running backs because, again, the plethora of receivers out there, maybe it's worth snagging one of these running backs early. All right, the second lesson. We saw this here on Sunday night. Dallas's offensive struggles concerning. CeeDee Lamb, only 3-4 catches. Dak Prescott, less than 10 points fantasy-wise. The best offensive starter was most likely Dalton Schultz. So out of all these guys, it's kind of a concern here. Well, do we start sitting Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and others? CeeDee Lamb, is he a buy low candidate at this point? I don't know. This offense is kind of scary for me. The offensive line is extremely bad. Another offensive lineman got hurt for the Dallas Cowboys. They have a bunch of backups in, and it's a concern because their offensive talent is just not as good as it's been previously. The money caught up to them, essentially. But it's still too early to say it's over for them offensively as far as fantasy positions. But Elliott versus Pollard, it's going to be difficult to start them on a week-to-week basis with them cutting into each other's carries, targets, and efficiency. And then you think and hopefully CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, and Dak Prescott can recover. That trio is really where you want to target in fantasy and potentially Michael Gallup in the future. But right now, concerns. And this is in a situation where if somebody likes CeeDee Lamb, it might be a good opportunity to sell. If not, if you think that there could still be recovery here, buy low opportunities all around in Dallas. Okay, let's go to the other big hub in the NFL, the New York Giants. Oh, what a win for the Giants, 21-20 over Titans. Okay, now the biggest fantasy takeaway here is one player, Saquon Barkley. And again, a ton of people were sketched about him. I never understood why. He had the injury concerns, but besides the injury concerns, this guy was a top 5 running back, was projected last year to be, or the year before, a top 3 pick. And now look at the target share. Most targets as a receiver compared to any other receiver for this running back. Most carries with 21, 8 targets for a receiver, 51 snaps, which is the most behind Daniel Jones, who just played the 60. And nobody else contributed to this offense except for him. All the wide receivers struggled. Tony struggled, didn't get a ton of snaps. Sterling Shepard was their best receiver, but is this sign to come here to trust potentially Saquon and the Giants? And I think so. I mean, Saquon, the only thing is just, can his body handle it? Same thing as CMC. Can the body handle the load that the team will bring? Because it looks like Dable's just going to give this guy the rock in all phases of the offense. And a fantasy stud for this year is upon us. All right. Second to last takeaway here on the quarterback position. all the dual threat quarterbacks popped off this week. And again, that's where the value is when you're drafting in fantasy. Josh Allen above 30 points. Lamar Jackson above 20. You had Jalen Hurts 27. You had a bunch of others pulling great numbers. Mahomes with 5 touchdowns. And now you're starting to think, well, hey, where do we value some of these quarterbacks, and where does it become an issue for some of the ones that had a dud? Aaron Rodgers had a dud. Derek Carr had a dud. Dak Prescott had a dud. Matthew Stafford didn't play too well. And again, it's week 1, so this is just a trend of here that, again, the value goes to whoever runs the football. Jalen Hurts didn't even throw a touchdown pass, but balled otherwise because he ran the ball for 90 yards on 17 attempts, more than any other running back on the team. And I mean, it's just absurd numbers. But I think it's potential here. Joe Burrow had 4 picks. Not going to happen again. I love Joe Burrow in the future. If you can snag him. Again, fantasy-wise, he would have had a 26-point game if it wasn't for his interceptions. And he's not going to throw 4 interceptions again. Derek Carr, similar thing. Would have had 20 points without his picks. I think Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott could be a buy low option again, but sketchy with that Dallas Cowboy offense. So take a look at the quarterbacks here because, again, week 1, people overreact, and there could be buying opportunities here or sell opportunities on a lot of these big-name quarterbacks. Lastly, here I want to jump on the tight ends. We've gone through every position. I want to jump to the tight ends because this is also important. There's only one good tight end, Travis Kelsey, based on week 1 numbers. 26 points, 8 or more catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he is the focal point of that offense. And well worth the price that you probably paid in fantasy because he was probably a 2nd to 3rd round pick in a lot of leagues. And if he went 1st round, well, again, that's just on the person who drafted that. But besides that, a lot of tight ends struggled. Kyle Pitts struggled. Mark Andrews struggled. Dalton Schultz didn't really put up great numbers. Zach Ertz struggled. Dallas Goedert didn't put great numbers. All of a sudden here, the value, if you have Kelsey versus all these other tight ends, is proving huge. But again, just week 1, let the tight ends settle in, but definitely some concerns here. Kyle Pitts only 2 catches. Mark Andrews only 5. I don't know what's happening, and let alone all the tight ends that we thought might be really good on low buy-ins here. Pat Fryan did decent for his ADP. You had Cole Kmet, 0 catches. You had this new tight end in the Ravens, Isaiah Likely, didn't produce anything behind Mark Andrews. So the value here for tight ends is crucial. And if you can still buy low and trade for one of these tight ends, I would, because comparatively to all these tight ends here in this league, the points that you can get on an upside here is through the roof.
I think I'm in love, say it way too often. I can't play these games, think I'm switching up the offense. See me in LA, I'll be moving cautious, I can feel no pain.